Well, a tough challenge on the campaign trail as racy photos are used to attack a Democratic candidate for Congress. Krystal Ball was thrown into the headlines following the release of these pictures taken 6 years ago during her college days at a holiday party. Ball says the recent attacks she has faced over these photos are sexist and wrong. Krystal Ball joins me live. Krystal, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan.
So let's just get the name thing out of the way, because there's a reason that your parents had a last name like Ball and nonetheless named you Krystal.
My dad is actually a PhD physicist who did his dissertation on crystals. They just like the name.
Okay, it's definitely an eye grabber.
Well,
your background is you're a CPA, you're a software designer, you are married, and you decided to run for Congress even though you're 28 years old.
That's right.
After the birth of your daughter Ella back in 2008. And why? So young.
Well, I became really frustrated actually with the nature of politics in this country. I became very personally frustrated with the extreme partisanship, with the triumph over politics over policy, and honestly with exactly these kinds of smear tactics that I'm now facing in this race, the politics of personal destruction, which I think many people are extremely frustrated with in this country.
And we're going to get to the pictures in a second, but you say that two of your inspirations were women, were Hillary Clinton and Sarah Palin, who you disagree with ideologically, but you were inspired seeing her out there on the campaign trail, in particular with her baby Trig, and you thought, I'm a young mother, maybe I can do it too.
That's exactly right. I do disagree with Sarah Palin on a lot of issues, but seeing her up on stage there with her young family and her young baby was just beautiful. And I thought, you know what, maybe I could give this a shot as well.
And you thought, okay, I'm going to go out there, I feel empowered, I'm part of a new generation. And you thought in particular you might get supported by Hillary Clinton supporters because you're a Democrat and you sort of ideologically, I guess, feel the way Hillary does. And you said you were surprised that you did not get the support, as you put it in a piece, of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pantsuit, who you say pretty much came to you and said, you need to look less sexy and I guess a little bit more manly. How so?
Well, I got advice right from the beginning of cut your hair, wear less makeup, dress like you're older, wear shorter heels, all those sorts of things. And what I came to realize was that it wasn't a put down on me. It was that they wanted to protect me from the kind of sexism that they'd seen. Now, from my own perspective, women who are stepping up of my generation to run now and to be successful in any career now, we've kind of decided that, you know what, it's okay to be feminine and powerful and smart. It's okay to be all of those things. And to me, that's sort of the next generation of feminism.
And that will break the preconceptions of some that you can't be both smart and strong and serious and sexy.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
But nonetheless, in the context of doing that and refusing to sacrifice your femininity, somebody, we don't know who, we can assume perhaps it's somebody not supporting you for Congress, releases these pictures of you in your college days. And we blurred them, but listen, I mean, basically it shows you horsing around in couple simulated sexual acts with your ex-husband who's wearing a sexual device as part of his costume. All right, so you're basically behaving like your typical college moron who didn't expect to run for Congress. Nonetheless, the question is whether the voters of Virginia are going to forgive this. And you say what?
Well, I have the utmost faith and belief in voters in Virginia and voters across the country. They're disgusted with these tactics too. It's irrelevant to the race. And since this has come out, people have come up to me on the street and said, you know what, just stick to the issues. That's what people care about. We have such big problems in this country, a tremendous deficit and huge amounts of debt. We still need to get people back to work, figure out how we can get our education system back to #1 in the world.
But I want to talk to you about how this made you feel, because I thought that was an interesting piece of this for you. So often we forget that candidates for Congress have feelings.
Are human.
And you write about how suddenly because you've got the name Krystal Ball, which people say sounds like a porn star, and now you say, for millions of people around the world, suddenly I'm a joke. And you say the people who did this wanted to, and I don't usually use this word on television, but you say they wanted to make me feel like a whore. And what I actually did is go home to my husband and cry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was obviously tremendously hurtful, extremely embarrassing. It must have been someone that knows me personally that leaked these photos. So it was very hard. But, you know, the tactic of painting women, successful politicians as a whore, and I also can't believe I'm using that word on your program, but it's nothing new. Ask Sarah Palin, ask Meg Whitman, ask Nikki Haley, Christine O'Donnell. Lots of women face the same thing. And so I decided, although I wanted to just sort of hide in a corner and cry, that I couldn't let these tactics succeed.
Do you think do you think there's a double standard, though, that if this had been a guy doing this, let's say the ex-husband was running for Congress, that he'd be given a pass? Because I don't know, maybe people would say, well, he looks like a moron in college too, I don't want him either.
Well, I think if we look at the example of Scott Brown, you know, he had pictures from the same age as those pictures were taken of me, only he was completely naked in the centerfold of a national magazine, and it was not even a bump in his campaign. In fact, he has said that it actually helped him a little bit in his campaign. And I'm not holding anything against Senator Scott Brown. That's as it should be, in my view, because those sorts of things, to me, are not relevant to the campaign trail. And I do think that there's a double standard. I also wanted to bring up to you, Megan, and to your viewers, there's a wonderful program called NameItChangeIt.org that is bipartisan, that is fighting against exactly this kind of sexism.
And you talk about, too, about how you think that people need to understand the fact that candidates for office have sex lives. Even women, even young women, and more in the age of Facebook, where the people who are going to be running for office over the next 10, 20 years are going to have online histories. We're going to see a lot more of this, and maybe we're going to have to become more forgiving or more understanding about the fact that sometimes people have things in their past they're not that proud of.
Yeah, and I hope that this will serve to make people realize that candidates are human. I hope it will serve to humanize more politicians. But my message is this, you know what, if you're a young woman or a young man and you did something stupid on camera when you were young, don't let it stop you running for office. Don't let these kinds of tactics scare you out of the race, because we need you to step up and serve the country.
And the vast majority of us have behaved like morons at some point or another in our past. Krystal, I know that you are trailing severely in the polls, and so we don't know whether it'll happen for you this time. But listen, we appreciate you coming on, talking about the photos.
Thank you so much.
You know, I'm sure you're an inspiration to a lot of young girls in terms of your ambition and your willingness to come out and try to run for office at 28 years of age.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Take care. All the best.